when I did my homework for the session, the last few days, as somebody as a journalist, who's more engaged with what is called mainstream cinema in the country, which is what I understand better about, I was quite amazed at the optimism and the consistency that documentary filmmakers in this country have shown. Because when you read the list of what works for you and what works against you, I think the second line had a lot more boxes. And after that, then you look at what's actually been happening, and I think it's something which is not talked about enough for what we actually achieved. And then the smaller things, like we keep reading about mainstream cinema going from scratch to shooting and everything getting over in 40 days, 45 days, and people are very happy about that. And here you look at the smallest budget work, and somebody's putting 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years of life into that single project. And you don't end up that project with buying a big house in Bombay or driving a S-Class. So actually, let me first start by stating that I have a newfound respect for the documentary space, because there's a lot happening here which I don't think everybody understands. And so credit to you for that space. And then, to start off, so I have a 2-3 layer structure in my head, which we've chatted once. But so when I saw the topic, the documentary on the world stage, my thoughts after my homework was that, is that perhaps the only stage that the Indian documentary has? Because there is actually no equivalent Indian documentary on the Indian stage. There are no rock stars in documentaries in India. You don't get rich, you don't get large screen openings. And if you look at the people who've done the best work, a lot of the money is coming from abroad. A lot of the recognition comes to you when you get a Western festival to acknowledge your activity and talk about it. After which, sometimes you don't even get that same award-winning activity screened back in the country. So it is the Indian documentary which is actually fighting its battles on the world stage inherently, and there it has been throwing above its weight, and it's made quite a mark in the last few years. So if you look at the names, and it's just the last couple of years phase, but like from Writing with Fire to All That Breathes, The Elephant Whisperer, Against the Tide, which I hear being talked about very well these days, Night of Knowing Nothing. For the lay consumer who doesn't watch all documentaries perhaps, but if he just Googles Indian documentary plus Cannes, Sundance, Oscar, BAFTA, you have names popping up in 2022, 23, and possibly 24 as well from what can make up. So is this a flash in the pan space? Is this just a lucky break we're having, or is this part of a larger process? Is this likely to continue further from here, or so to bring it in cricketing terms? What we've been doing, is this something like what the Indian or Australian teams have done in the World Cup, which comes from a legacy and from a system, or is this the Afghanistan team? Like, I don't know how you did it, but explain to me, please. So I'd like your thoughts in sequence. Maybe starting with you, Bhajan.
Thank you for that question, and I think for me it's definitely something that happened in continuum. I'm very well aware of the legacy of documentary filmmakers before me. There were people like Anand Patwardhan, Deepa Dhanraj, a lot of filmmakers who built a certain brand of filmmaking, factual filmmaking, which we would actually, those were the days we have to go and get a tape rented from the store to watch it, and we would watch it because they were the truths of our times and connected with each of us. And I think with very little resources, they did what they did, which you brought up, which is, I think, the legacy we come from. And we've all built our own versions of storytelling from the strengths that they brought to the table. So I see myself as a continuum to what they had put in place. And in turn, I think I say I was one of the early ones to go international in that sense, and it was partly because of this. There were very little resources in India to support the kind of factual storytelling that you're aiming, which is cinematic as well. So going abroad, pitching internationally, and getting those resources to tell long timeline stories, because when you're telling a factual story, you have to wait for those events to happen. You can't create it, unlike in fiction. So to invest that time to build your craft and slowly kind of get it onto the world stage. And I think there have been like that almost continuity of people headlining different festivals. And today, the names that you listed out have all built on the legacy that was behind them. There have been institutions that have supported us as well, like Dockage, that honed our craft, brought us together, brought those international sort of commissioning editors to the table so that they very early sort of saw the films they wanted to and invest in. So it's been a organic process, and what you see today is not a flash in the pan. It's been very carefully built up, and it's reached a sort of point where it's making headlines.
Are you optimistic that we'll be able to have sessions on this topic 3 years down the line?
Definitely. There's no stopping storytellers. We've been doing it when we had no resources, and now the resources are here. So definitely, you're going to see much more.
I think I have to begin with, I sort of got immersed into this new world with The Elephant Whisperers being my first documentary. So I'm really new to the industry, but I have been a storyteller, first with photography and now with the moving camera. So I think from the perspective that I come from, I was a struggling photographer, so there was definitely no money in that as well, and that transferred into this, I think. And in the beginning, I didn't really think that a story like this would be picked up, honestly, because first it was human animal, and then I had a lot of people telling me that it was not possible, that even mainstream things were not getting picked up, so documentary, just forget about it. But I remember telling them at that point, I will get it sold. I'm not sure how, but I will. And now when I really look at things, I think when I went for the Oscar campaign, I think that opened up a whole world of documentary storytelling. I haven't been immersed into the documentary world in India, but I was pushed into the Oscar campaign as part of a larger picture. And I realized there were so many storytellers, and we were all connected by one thing, that we all had impact-driven stories. There were stories from different parts of the world that we all wanted to tell, and we were all united. And that's when I thought to myself, this is something that I would love to feel in India. I want that family around us. So I think when I really think about it, I think one of the biggest problems that we have is the funding. And I think we are in a stage where things are starting to change, but I think we're still very early into the process. I do see a lot of interest in local stories coming from India, and I think we're just at the peak right now, and I hope that there's better change in the future. But again, post the Academy Award, I think it also just goes back to, I'm just starting work on my next documentary project, and I'm still going through the same process. I still have to go out there, I still have to pitch, I still have to have the same kind of commitment. The Elephant Whisperers took 6 years of my life, from 2017 all the way up to 2023. And that entire chunk was just out of the picture, because the whole time I was working in the field, and I spent many days out in the field over the duration of the 6 years. It wasn't 6 years chopper blocked. And at that point, it was my first documentary, and I was navigating the flow of how things were supposed to come. So it's a relatively new journey, but I think we're kind of in the in-between space of how do things go from here for India, for documentaries, and how can we, I think we need to really look at how money comes in and how we can get more funding to new storytellers, people who have stories that really want them to go outside. And also the target audience is really important. Where do we want these to go?
So coming from the space that you're the most person with the most recent exposure to the global, the whole question of which documentary is better and who's made, and you talk to other people, I'm assuming when you go out there and you see what other cultures are doing, what other countries are doing, is there any deficit at our end beyond resources? Like if supposing we were to have funding options for Indian documentary makers at par with what the people you saw out there, if they had, how much would it improve our chances of doing well globally?
Well, I think one of the big looming questions for me is, I don't know if I got lucky this time and had it picked up, because I've been told that they're not going to do any more short docs, they're not going to look at documentaries. And this is after the Academy Award. So my question is there something that's going to come out of this into the future? Like, why can't documentaries have a mainstream platform? Why can't it be shown in? I mean, why can't we have theatrical releases for documentaries? And I think we need a solid audience. If mainstream cinema can take over the theaters for days, and sometimes movies that are big flops, then where's the space for real life stories? Why can't we have the same audience? Because I think post The Elephant Whisperers, I saw that a lot of people were deeply connected. And not just to that, like All That Breathes, Writing with Fire, they have such strong stories behind them. And they're so deeply rooted in actual people and actual stories. So I think there is a huge market for this. I don't think we've figured out how to tap into it and to get our country proud of what we're doing and get them a solid space and a stage to stand on.
Thank you. Point taken. So, representing the people who need to give platforms. No, but see, also please do educate us on both platforms, because you know firsthand how platforms handle this content. But what she's saying, even mainstream theaters, they never ever give shows to a documentary. How is that? What is the commercial ROI?